Lots of people might not know that, but if you want to test the price, you can make a conditional offer with a quick turnaround, as long as it's not too close to auction day.
Wealth HQ, empowering you to take charge of your financial life.
The First Lady of Real Estate is back after inflation dipped to 2.2% this week. Today, she's talking secret tactics when you're negotiating. Last week, Emma Duncan predicted on this show there would be an increase in foot traffic at open homes because of a drop in the official cash rate, and she was right. You've seen her discussing the housing market on TVNZ's One News. Ray White ranks Emma as Chairman's Elite, meaning she is in the top 1% of agents across Australasia. She is based in Auckland's Mount Albert, but sells houses all across the city. Emma, what's the best piece of advice you can give about negotiation?
Probably I don't take my own advice. So I am what we call an emotional buyer. You think with your heart, not your head, and you fall in love with something, want to have it, and try your best to get it.
Yeah.
You don't play a really cool hand in that. So there's different types of buyers, but if you can try not to get emotional and fall in love, it'll probably serve you a bit better.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the differences between buying your own home, which is more emotional, and buying an investment property, which is more of our specialty, and finding that right balance.
Exactly. So if it's an investment or even your own home, you do need to probably talk to yourself and see what you really can do comfortably, versus if you have to have something and you push yourself. Maybe your budget was to borrow 500 and suddenly it's crept up to 7 or $1 million or something like that.
Yeah, I guess it's good to start with the max and work backwards.
Then up,
Yeah. So when you're working with somebody that wants to sell their property, how do you negotiate with them to meet the market? I'm sure there's a lot of people that really want to hold on to the hope of getting the best price. Maybe that was 2 or 3 years. They had this figure in their mind. How do you help clients understand what the market value really is?
Well, if you're thinking of selling, you usually get an appraisal. So like a valuation, we present to the owner, however many comparable sales there are. Sometimes there's none because their property is unique, but sometimes there might be 10. So we'll ultimately give them a range of where we see the house sitting.
Yeah.
Some sellers, because they're buying and selling in the same market, it's all relative. They might be getting what they feel is less for theirs, but they'll be buying as well. So you can collect that on the other side. But some sellers might be downsizing to a retirement village. The retirement villages haven't reduced their pricing.
They certainly haven't.
No, you might be able to get 10 to 40,000 off the price, whereas for their residential home it might be 400,000 less. So those types of sellers, where it might be your last sort of nest egg, they may want to hold on and wait for a better day, and that's their prerogative. So I don't actually try and get vendors to come down. You give information, and it's up to them whether they want to meet the market or not. Or wait. And I do say to everyone, someone will pay your price. It's just the variable of time that we don't know. It could be a month, or it could be a year, or it could be 5 years, depending on where the market's at versus the vendors.
Yeah. And so if we were going to be helping buyers, and buyers ultimately it would be great if they have more than one option, because that does give them a little bit of negotiation power. But given the two kind of most common sales techniques, we've got negotiation or various forms, and auctions. Starting with negotiation, if you're helping a buyer, how do you get them to think about making an offer and assessing the value of the property, and what tips do you give them?
There are a lot of tools out there at the moment. There's like OneRoof, where they will give you a pricing guide. There's homes.co.nz and Trade Me. They all kind of have a range of like low, medium and high. So that can help a little bit. You can ask the real estate agent who's marketing the property to provide, 3 comparable sales. and how do they compare? And you can sort of analyze those yourself. So you could see, okay, that one had 600 square meters of land, and that went for, say, $1 million, and the one I'm looking at has 400 square meters of land and the houses are similar. Then you'll be able to see, okay, well, that's down a bit. So you can analyze data. You can ask the agent how many days it's been on the list, on the market for. That information is available online as well. You can usually see when a house was listed. You can ask the agent how many price reductions there have been. So something might be, again, I'll just say $1 million, but maybe at the start of the year it was 1.5. So now it might be an older listing, but the vendors have brought their expectations down. It might be priced to sell now, but because it's an older listing, it will have less views. So
bit more pressure on the agent as well, right? Because you want to get that sale before they switch or take it off market.
Yeah. So you can look at how old a listing is, but you want to know, has the price come down? If it hasn't, it probably is overpriced. So that's just, a few key things to look for.
All right. Well, I think negotiation, there's definitely a lot more variables, and because there's no cut date time, it kind of makes things, it's a bit more loose and lots of things to think about. But with auctions, there's a date and a time.
Yeah.
So when you're working with buyers, what should people be doing in the day leading up to the auction and during the auction to secure their property at auction? And then maybe what happens if the property doesn't meet reserve?
Yeah.
How do you hope that your buyer gets themselves in the best position?
So with an auction, you do have, I think our auctions have 0 people coming, up to, on a good one, we might have 7, and everything in between. So if you are planning on attending an auction, you will have less competition than afterwards with conditional buyers. So you are helping yourself by trying to get to an auction, but there is a cost involved, which is why you might spend, well, mortgage brokers are free for advice, right? So you can tick that box, but then you need to get a building report potentially. That can set you back $500 to $1,000, and then legal advice. What would that cost you to get to auction? And if you've got a few that you want to go to, that does start eating away at your deposit, depending on the price that your property is at and what you earn. So that's why lots of people don't attend auctions, and when they know from the media that maybe it won't sell if you've got a 50% chance roughly, a lot of people are waiting, but you will have less competition on the night because of that reason.
Yeah, certainly for first-time buyers that are close to the 20% deposit or even below that, auctions are a lot riskier and more expensive. And if you're trying to sell a property and you think that it's going to be more for first-time buyers, then I would really reconsider using auction, despite how much kind of motivation you get from the agent to choose that as a method. But for people that are moving properties or buying investment properties, then auction might be the right trick, from a mortgage advisor's point of view anyway.
You can actually make a pre-auction offer that is conditional. So lots of people might not know that. But if you want to test the price, you can make a conditional offer with a quick turnaround, as long as it's not too close to auction day, I guess. And then you can use the response from the vendor to gauge if you're in the right ballpark or not, and whether it's worth pushing yourself a bit harder to get there on auction. And you can ask us, how many people do we think are coming? And you can sort of suss out your competition that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say property, you think as an agent, it's sitting around that 1.2 mark. The highest bid at auction was around $1 million. Didn't close at auction. Now what? You're working with, you can choose buyer or seller. How are you going to get closer to a sale?
Well, that comes okay, if it doesn't sell, then we have like a database of all the people that have shown interest in similar properties, and you just get on the phone the next day and start talking to people, seeing who wants to put an offer down, because you're inviting conditional buyers at this point. So for someone that didn't want to outline the cost of a building report, they can now make an offer subject to doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many variables. You can see why people get confused. So,
and how many days as a broker are you advising your clients for finance conditions?
I mean, over the years, 5 to 10 days probably be something you're getting away with, but certainly now 15 working days is, definitely desirable for most banks and most advisors. They're going to want at their time frame. Now, when you're working with somebody that's selling and buying, there's a lot of time pressure. When you're working with an investor that wants to find something that's kind of more logical, they might have pre-approval, got 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. There's less time pressure.
Yeah.
So it really depends on that buyer.
Yeah.
As an agent representing the seller, you really want to find highly emotional buyers, right? First time buyer, falls in love with a property, got pre-approval, it's under their budget, that's a far better option for you as representing the seller than an investor that's totally logically trying to get their steal.
Yeah.
Right?
So like an auction campaign's 21 days. So I guess if you are needing finance and don't want to outlay the cost of trying to get to auction, you could get in there quickly in the first few days with an offer that's conditional and then just test the pricing.
Yeah. As an investor, the way that I think about it is keep an eye on the listings, so new listings, and make early offers, just as you described, or the complete opposite. I want to see listings that have been like 6-9 months. Somebody's getting desperate. Their price expectations have been dropping consistently.
Yeah.
And they might even be prepared to offer 6 to 12 month settlement options just to get themselves away from the problem.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. And if you can have a long settlement, and those offers you can also often do subject to a house sale to really mitigate your risk as a buyer if you need to sell your house. So that's a great option. I will say though, with properties like making early offers, sometimes it is only maybe the first 3 or 4 weeks where that price might not have been on the money, but it doesn't take long. As a homeowner, you want to check that there's nothing better, right? And sometimes that process is just 3 weeks. So your advice is really great, but even listings that are 3 to 4 weeks down the track could reconsider that offer again in a little amount of time like that.
Yeah, I mean, the midpoint of that, from looking at properties that have just been listed and been listed for a long, long time, is properties that failed to sell at auction, right? Because if they didn't really get any bids or any bids close to, they're really getting to a point where, okay, I want to sell.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like, there's a good chance I might not sell.
Yeah.
Unless I,
yeah,
meet these conditions. So meet the market. So the thing with properties, especially in Auckland, I imagine across the country, is a lot of properties have issues, consent problems, or maybe there's something wrong with the walls or the roof or a driveway. If you're representing and helping a buyer, how do you use these issues in your negotiation process?
Well, any agent always works for the seller because that's who pays us. So there are buyer's agents out there that can go and find those properties and help probably get a deal together. Properties with issues, if you can't get insurance because there's an unconsented garage, then, as you know, the bank, depending on the buyer, probably won't want to lend on that property. So if you are finding properties with issues and you know you can rectify those, you probably are getting, and the vendor can't do it for whatever reason, you probably are getting it at a better price because there's a fault with it. And sometimes faults aren't as big as they sound. So you could have an unconsented toilet. You could take it out if there's other toilets, and suddenly you've solved that problem. It's pretty cheap.
Some banks allow that to be a post-settlement condition, right? And so some buyers will look at that and say, oh, I'm not going to be able to buy that property because it has challenges, or maybe inexperienced banker or mortgage advisor is going to say, oh, you can't do it.
Yeah.
But no, pre-settlement, post-settlement conditions, or actually just going from this bank that said no to another bank that might say yes.
Exactly.
It's crazy what you can push through if you've got the right people helping you out.
If I was looking for an investment or a property, that's really good advice, and I would look for properties with faults that you can fix. A good agent should try and help their vendor fix those challenges to get the pricing up
before listing.
But it doesn't always happen, and some people can't. It might be an estate or there's various reasons.
So if you're working in a situation where there's multiple offers on the table, what's going to help you as an agent representing your client decide on the best offer that's coming through? Some people might be offering 50 grand less, for example. How do they make their offer more attractive that you would be saying to the client, hey, even though it's less, this is a better offer?
Well, sometimes it's as simple as giving the agent a story. We have, I couldn't count how many times, but often a homeowner likes the story we've told them about the family with the baby that loves the house, and they've chosen to work with those buyers over maybe an offer with a higher price. Now, that doesn't happen that often because money talks. But it does happen. So if you are in a multi-offer, it doesn't ever hurt to give a story if you have a good one, something that might be an emotive story. Also, if you can't get your price sharper, you can do other things like reduce your due diligence time. So sometimes people want on a contract on the front page, there's do you want a building inspection? You circle it. And finance and toxicology, you can actually, and then they put in a due diligence clause, you can actually wrap all of that front page up in one clause in the further terms. So even just visually, it looks better for an owner to pick. If you have two contracts and one has yes, I need all of this homework and more homework in the back versus just one clause that covered everything on the front page, that seems like a cleaner offer, even though they're very similar. Or you can shorten your time frame down. This might be tricky for you because if you're a homeowner and you're looking at an offer that's identical, but one's 5 days due diligence and another is 15, you're going to go with the 5 days. If that's out of your hands, you could ask the agent, hey, what's really important to the vendor here with settlement date? Because if it's an investment property, a 4-week settlement versus 8 weeks, that's cash, because if you settle sooner, you're outlaying less costs. So there are things you can ask an agent. What's important to the vendor?
When I'm looking to buy a property or part of a group or myself, it's always, hey, what is the ideal settlement date for the vendor?
Yeah.
And that helps negotiate. Maybe you can get a little deposit. Certainly, I don't like to include things myself of, say, a builder's report as a formal condition.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get a inspection done, get somebody that knows what they're looking at, go and have a look through things for me, and for that professional to waive kind of their professional kind of guidelines. And I just want someone to have a look for me.
Yeah.
But when you put the formal condition of a builder's report, then the bank's going to ask for it. So if there's any issues, it's going to go straight through.
Yeah.
I just want to know what the issues are that I can manage it. You work through it later.
Yeah.
Due diligence is definitely a catch-all clause. It can be very short. And a lot of people are saying they need 15 days for due diligence. I reckon 2 to 5 days is totally fine. You have your finance already either pre-qualified or pre-approved.
Yeah.
And you want to very quickly decide, are you going to buy this property or not at the price that you've offered? Do a walkthrough, do your numbers again. You're basically gauging, are they going to accept my price?
Yeah.
And can I make a decision in 3 days? And I think that makes your offer a lot more attractive to the vendor than 15 days of lockup, getting 50, 100, 200 or 300,000 price discount for the shorter due diligence period. I think.
Yeah. And especially with a homeowner, that could fall through after the 50. You could be waiting 13 days and then the deal's over. And it doesn't feel very safe. But sometimes an owner has to work with that offer because it was the only one or the best one. But if you are in a multi offer, it is best to make it, like you said, 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
It's been great to learn a little bit about negotiations, and if people are looking at buying property in that kind of central Auckland, Mount Albert area, I hope to look you up.
Thank you.
Financial freedom. Financial freedom.
Wealth HQ, empowering you to take charge of your financial life.